The story begins in London with a boy named Quinn Abercrombie. At the end of the day, he goes to meet his mother at a subway station that is under construction. Her name is Karen, and she is supervising the work of the workers. Quinn shows her a letter that brings bad news about school. His scholarship has been suspended, and now the cost has become too high. Then one of the workers arrives, warning that there is a problem down below. The drilling has hit a hollow area that no one knew was there. Driven by curiosity, Quinn crawls through the hole and enters that mysterious place. He is startled when the ground suddenly catches fire and the cave walls start to move. Then he realizes that, in fact, it is a massive creature. The thing spits in his face, and Quinn escapes from the hole in terror, trying to explain to his mother what he saw inside. Karen panics upon seeing her son's face and rushes to wash it, ignoring what he says. Only now do the workers realize that there is something very strange in that cave. The entire subway structure begins to shake, and the monster spits a burst of fire through the tunnels. Karen is desperate to see the flames and runs to the elevator with her son. Quinn keeps saying that there was something in the cave, and soon the proof appears before them in the form of a giant dragon. When it shakes the structure of the elevator violently, Karen hits her head and succumbs to her injuries. Unfortunately, this was just the first of many dragons that came out of there. In no time, the winged monsters dominate the entire planet. Scientists discover that they were responsible for burning all the dinosaurs, and their ashes caused the Ice Age. The truth is that dragons hibernate hidden while the Earth is empty, waiting until a new species multiplies enough. Then they come out to feed on that race, which, in this case, is humans. All efforts to contain the threat prove useless, or even worsen the situation, as nuclear weapons devastate the large cities without deterring the dragons. 18 years later, humanity has been so reduced that the dragons are also starving. Now an adult, Quinn lives in an abandoned castle on the border of Scotland with a group of survivors. Most of them respect Quinn as their leader. But life is very harsh in the post-dragon world, and not everyone obeys the rules. When food begins to run low, a castle inhabitant named Eddie decides to take a group of men for harvest. Quinn is warned in time and goes to the gates to stop him. He says it is not the right time yet, and an early harvest could compromise future crops. Eddie retorts that there will be no future crops if everyone starves to death. To make matters worse, the last two groups of survivors who were communicating with them via radio stopped responding 2 days ago. As Quinn remains firm in the prohibition and even confiscates the keys to the car, the atmosphere begins to grow tense. It is then that Creedy, Quinn's best friend, arrives. Hearing Eddie ask if the castle is a prison, he explains that everyone is free to leave, even if that puts the community at risk. However, he must do so knowing he can never return. This seems to resolve the situation, at least for now. Later, Quinn and Creedy perform an amateur version of Star Wars to entertain the children of the castle. The young audience goes wild when Darth Vader's paternity is revealed. One of the boys asks who invented that story, and Quinn replies that it was him. Promising the unprecedented play, The Lion King, for the next day, Quinn has everyone recite a prayer before going to bed. Instead of a traditional text, their prayer is a series of questions and answers teaching what to do if they see a dragon. In the middle of the night, Eddie steals the keys back and wakes his friend Michael, telling his wife to keep quiet. A few more join them, and the group steals a vehicle, crossing the gates without anyone seeing. Shortly after, Quinn wakes up to the whistling wind and finds little Liam in the hallway, scared. The boy asks if that is a dragon's whistle, and Quinn says it is just the breeze, but lets him stay in the room until the fear passes. At the same time, the sentinel Barlow startles at the agitation of the birds and gets up to sneak a peek. Eddie's crew is already devouring tomatoes when Barlow sees something concerning in the sky and sounds the alarm. Everyone immediately gets up and starts organizing, already accustomed to the emergency. It is then that Michael's wife decides to tell the truth to Quinn. In the field, it is already too late when the birds announce danger. Eddie panics upon seeing the dragon spewing fire and runs to save his family. He manages to find his wife Rachel and son Devin, who barely escaped. Michael's face is burned, and a guy named Matt did not survive. They can barely recover from the scare when the dragon returns, destroying the vehicle and spreading fire everywhere. Eddie's family huddles in the middle of the field, surrounded by a ring of fire. Fortunately for them, Quinn and Creedy backtrack on the threat to abandon Eddie. They arrive at the field prepared for combat and offer a ride in a military vehicle. Devon is put in charge of the automatic weapon, and that position ends up costing him his life when the dragon tries to block their path. Back at the castle, Quinn prefers not to fight with Eddie because he just lost his son. But the situation that was already bad has gotten much worse now that the field has been completely destroyed. The next day, a guy named Ajay hears some voices on the radio and warns Barlow, who sounds the alarm again upon seeing several tanks approaching. Each of the men receives a weapon to defend the castle, and Barlow discovers that ammunition is almost running out. Creedy confesses to having mixed feelings about the possible invasion. Despite posing an extra danger to the community, he feels relieved that there are still other humans alive. However, as soon as the vehicles stop, Creedy takes back everything he said when he sees that they are Americans. Their leader is named Von Zen, and he claims he arrived there in a plane he rebuilt himself, but the landing was not very smooth, and he lost over 100 of his men. Now he is asking for shelter in a safe place, just until the following night. The request could be reasonable if it weren't for the plane story. Quinn reminds Von Zen that now the sky belongs to the monsters, but the other firmly rejects the idea and shows him a dragon tooth he uses as a trophy. He explains to Quinn that he discovered the beast's weak point, which is their blurred vision during twilight. Visibly impressed with the foreigner, Quinn orders the gates to be opened and lets the tanks enter. Creedy is distraught by his friend's decision and almost laughs in his face upon hearing that Von Zem is a dragon slayer, since the last time one was killed was nearly 18 years ago, when the army still truly existed. However, even Creedy is forced to stay quiet when the visitor's helicopter appears in the sky. Von Zem introduces them to the pilot, Alex Jensen. She calls her men archangels because they jump without parachutes when it is necessary to lure dragons. Still not used to their style, Creedy laughs at the idea of capturing a dragon in the net, but Alex doesn't seem to find it very funny. Quinn tells his friend that they need to stay alert, as he still does not fully trust the newcomers. In the kitchen, Alex and Quinn begin to get to know each other better. Seeing a boy who is always with him, Alex asks if he is his son. Quinn tells her he took in Jared when the boy was only 3 years old. He and Creedy were on their way out of there, without a defined refuge yet. But they couldn't leave the boy behind. Jared had been trying to wake his mother for days, unwilling to accept the truth. Alex comments that most men would have left the boy in the street, praising Quinn's kindness. He takes this moment to catch her off guard and asks what this bunch of American soldiers came to do in the United Kingdom. Not falling into the trap, Alex tells him to ask all his questions to Von Zen, who is the commander. At that moment, Barlow sounds the dreaded alarm again. Quinn almost dies of embarrassment at his own security system while watching the military professionalism of the foreigners. Mere seconds after the alarm, the helicopter is already airborne, the trucks are on the road, and the motorcycles are spreading out in a coordinated manner to triangulate the target's position. Today, it is the Archangel Alvarez's turn to be the bait, while Gideon and Alvarez take on the role of gunners. Suddenly, the dragon appears right behind the helicopter, and Von Zen becomes worried, as the third point has not yet been set. Through the binoculars, Quinn sees the dragon flying over the castle and the motorcycle ascending the mountain. Hearing the communication between Von Zen and the others on the radio, Ajay realizes that the motorcyclist is already gone. Quinn starts calling for him and finds out what happened, then decides to ride out immediately to help. Without the third motorcycle, there is no way to locate the enemy, and that is very dangerous for everyone in the helicopter. Quinn rides up the mountain, finds the fallen motorcycle, and positions the third signal. However, triangulation is only completed when Alex knows where the dragon is, right behind them, attacking the helicopter. Alvarez goes into the air without warning, and the other two jump after their colleague, while Alex guides them over the radio. The dragon dives into the air, chasing the human projectile. Gideon and Jefferson shoot the net at its wings, but they come loose soon after. As that section is filled with heavy clouds, Alvarez only sees the dragon when it is close enough to toast it. On the radar, Alex sees that her teammate has smashed to the ground. Now that the bait has been lost, the dragon heads for Gideon, who also ends up having a mad. On the mountain, Quinn responds to Von Zen over the motorcyclist's radio, and the two come up with a plan B. Now it is Quinn who will be the bait, galloping at full speed while Von Zen springs into action. As soon as the horse appears on the horizon, he opens fire directly in that direction and nearly hits Quinn, but that is how he manages to hit the target. The dragon still lets out one last burst of fire before crashing into the castle courtyard, finally defeated. Approaching the gaping jaws, Von Zen does not miss the opportunity to take yet another souvenir. After dark, the atmosphere is festive in the castle, and the entire community applauds its heroes. But then Von Zen arrives with misty eyes and ends their joy, shouting that there is nothing to celebrate on a day when 3 people died to take a single dragon out of the sky. Quinn does not disagree with his opinion and attends the cremation of the soldiers, but he reminds the outsider that this is his home, where he himself buried many people. He also demands that he opens up about the journey there, and this time, Von Zen agrees to share the secret. He and Alex have already taken out over 200 dragons, and so far, all have been female. Their theory is that there is only one male, responsible for fertilizing all the females, and it would be enough to eliminate him to solve the problem once and for all. By studying the epidemiology of the creatures, they concluded that this male is in London, which is why they decided to cross the Atlantic. Quinn refuses to join this mission, as everyone who went to London ended up attracting more dragons on the way back and devastating their refuges. He does not want to risk the community at all, and this provokes a fight between the two. Suspecting that there might be another reason, Alex asks if something happened in London. Quinn tells of Karen's death and hints that the dragon that killed her was the male. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by Ajay. He came to warn Quinn that Von Zen is giving a speech in the castle courtyard and has already managed to enlist 4 people to go to London with him. Furious, Quinn arrives by punching him in the jaw, and the two begin to fight. But the other Americans rush to break it up when Von Zen loses control. Alex feels sorry for Quinn and gives him a bottle of medicine for his injuries while Von Zen begins to choose more people to go with him. After all this, Quinn still has to see Jared trying to sneak away to join the Americans. He asks the boy to reconsider and swears he will pass the leadership of the castle to him, as he has always planned. But Jared says that none of that makes sense, and now he wants to be an archangel. Thus, while Von Zen's crew sets off for war against the male dragon, Quinn goes to the field to gather what is left. At least, Jared shows up and reveals that he has changed his mind. When the boy complains about the smell of the dead beast, Quinn says that this is the only scent that dragons do not like, and therefore, it is a perfume for him. That night, he goes to the fallen body and takes an egg from inside it, confirming that it was indeed a female. Meanwhile, Von Zen's convoy arrives in London and finds a pile of rubble. His men begin to have doubts upon realizing that the rubble is formed by groups that tried to retake London before them. When a flame suddenly cuts through the darkness, Von Zen says there is no time to triangulate anything. He gives the order to attack, and the others obey very reluctantly. Twilight has long passed, and there is no longer any advantage in blurred vision. On the contrary, now it is they who cannot see anything, and only remain on alert when something whizzes past them. Seconds later, the dragon attacks mercilessly, engulfing the entire convoy in a ball of flames. Alex begins to panic upon seeing that no one else is responding on the radio. Back at the castle, AJ hears their frantic calls and understands that something terrible has happened. Alex decides to return to the convoy and discovers that Von Zen is one of the few survivors. Devastated, he says that it was the male dragon that attacked them, and it didn't even need to fly over twice to cause all that destruction. By saying this, he remembers Quinn's warning about the dragon's retaliation when someone dares to disturb him and deduces that the castle is in danger. Quinn is still outside when the monster bursts the windows of an entire side with fire. Without an alarm this time, everyone starts to flee in a disordered manner. When Quinn reaches the gate, the whole castle is in flames and the dragon appears on top, victorious. He waits until the beast flies away and rushes inside, calling out to his friends frantically. Jared shows up with a fire extinguisher and Creedy appears right after. Quinn starts helping them carry the children to the basement. He wants to go back upstairs to fetch those who are missing, but Creedy offers to go in his place. It is right at this moment that the dragon attacks again, and the two friends barely have time to say goodbye. Quinn sees Creedy for the last time being swallowed by a cloud of fire. After the door slams, he begins to pound on it in despair, but makes an effort to hold back because of the children. Hours later, Von Zen and Alex arrive with the remaining soldiers and help everyone out of the basement. Von Zen admits that Quinn was right, and now the entire castle is in ruins. However, that does not mean that Von Zen has given up on defeating his greatest enemy. And to his surprise, Quinn changes his mind and decides to face the trauma once and for all. Leaving Jared in charge of protecting the castle, he proposes a new plan to Von Zen and Alex. The three embark in the helicopter at the very end of the afternoon, using the cover of twilight to follow the River Thames and reach the heart of London. The city is shattered and completely taken over by dragons. Even Alex thinks it is madness to proceed, but Quinn explains that he knows the underground London like the back of his hand, and this will give a slight advantage to the trio. At that moment, the dragons begin to stir, and no one understands what is happening. They do not seem to have noticed the intruders, and even if they had, they are not attacking the three. Suddenly, the male dragon appears in the sky and snaps up one of the females. He has been so hungry for so long that the only way is to resort to his own harem. Unintentionally, this ends up helping the trio of humans a lot, as the females panic and fly far away from there. Taking advantage of this opening, the three advance through the city tunnels to the subway where Karen died. The plan now is to lure the male and hit him with explosive arrows until one strikes right in the chest. As he climbs up the elevator platform, Quinn almost freezes from the trauma, but Van Zen guesses what is happening and motivates him to use his sorrow as fuel for revenge. This works very well, and Quinn resumes climbing with renewed vigor. Arriving on the surface, Van Zen separates the trio to increase the chances of success, and as soon as the dragon arrives, each one runs to their position. Only then does Quinn realize he has lost the arrows. Alex is very nervous, as she usually fights the enemy from above and has never found herself alone in the battlefield. But Van Zen shouts instructions from the top of a tower and asks her to gather all her courage to obey. The dragon goes straight for her and stays in Van Zen's sights, but makes a last-minute detour right in his direction and neutralizes his arrow with its own explosive breath. Knowing that the beast will not let this slide, Van Zen leaps to his death with a war cry, and the dragon swallows him whole. Shocked, the other two abandon the plan and regroup. The dragon is still dazed and a bit hurt, but soon recovers and resumes spitting fire at the intruders. During the escape, Alex sees one of the lost arrows and shows it to Quinn, who runs over and begins preparing the shot. Seeing that time is running out, Alex runs right in front of the dragon, firing several shots to distract it, and then finally Quinn has the chance to avenge his mother while saving his species. Facing the dragon up close, he shoots the arrow at the exact moment it opens its mouth, making the monster explode before it can spit fire at him. After seeing the great alpha dragon dead on the ground, Quinn is impressed with his feat, but happy, as he finally had his revenge. 3 months later, Quinn is helping to build a radio tower when Jared arrives in a hurry. He says they picked up a signal from France, and the survivors there want to speak with a leader from that group. Quinn tells him to go back and speak with the Frenchman himself, as he is ready to lead the community.